Viva Ukraine. They currently have several elite boxers competing in the sport who are regarded as some of the best in the world. If we dig further back, we find that their fighting ability should never be questioned. In this episode, we look at a fairly obscure featherweight, arguably Ukraine's greatest fighter, as we determine how good was Kiev Kaplan. Leiser Kaplan was born on October 15, 1902, in Kiev Governorate, Russian Empire, more commonly known today as Ukraine. There are some reports of Kaplan being born in 1901. Kaplan stood 5'2" with a 62.5-inch reach. He primarily fought in the featherweight and lightweight divisions, ranging from 126 pounds to 135 pounds. Kaplan's career spanned from 1918 to 1933. Born to Jewish parents, Kaplan's family immigrated to the United States when he was 9 years old, stepping foot on Ellis Island around August 16, 1912, via the RMS Adriatic. Interestingly enough, it was a ship that some RMS Titanic survivors boarded after being rescued during the catastrophic events on April 15, 1912. Meridian, Connecticut would become the family's new home. Kaplan lived a poor life selling fruit and was often teased for wearing his sister's hand-me-down clothing. One day around 1914, after beating up another kid who'd framed him for stealing fruit, a police officer suggested Kaplan pick up boxing. Later in 1914, Kaplan started learning his boxing trade at the Lenox Athletic Club. Kaplan would make his professional debut at 15 years old on March 7, 1918. Being young with limited amateur experience, Kaplan would have to learn on the job, which was common during the era. An early rival of Kaplan's was a boxer named Mickey Travers. Travers and Kaplan would fight several times between 1920 and 1923, proving to benefit Kaplan in hardening him for the road ahead. Kaplan would go 1-3-2 with one no contest with Travers during this period. In their final fight on January 15, 1923, Kaplan gained a much satisfying victory over the rugged Travers. On November 24, 1922, Kaplan would get his first major test in the ring against former world junior lightweight champion Steve "Kid" Sullivan in Madison Square Garden, New York. 9,000 fans were in attendance as Kaplan battered Sullivan over 12 rounds to pick up a points victory. In his next fight on December 18, 1922, Kaplan would lock horns with his greatest rival, Babe Herman, a protege of former world heavyweight champion Jack Dempsey. Despite being the favorite, Kaplan would drop a 12-round decision to Herman. It wouldn't take long before Kaplan and Herman were back in the ring again on March 8, 1923. Kaplan dropped Herman in the first round, though Herman could rise at the count of 4. Things didn't fare too well from there as Kaplan blitzed Herman with an offensive pace that proved too much for Herman. Despite showing he has a stiff right hand at points, Herman would be bloodied and bruised by the end of the 12th, and Kaplan would gain the decision in their return bout. Less than a week later, on March 14th, Kaplan would drop a 12-round points decision to the well-traveled Al Schubert, former New England featherweight champion. On May 17th, Kaplan would gain a statement knockout over former world featherweight title challenger Danny Frush in 6 rounds. Kaplan would then move into a 3-fight series with rival Babe Herman, with the first of the 3 taking place on June 6 at the Polo Grounds in New York. The 2 men would fight to an 8-round draw on the same card as Eugene Creaky versus Johnny Kilbane's world featherweight title matchup. The rivals would fight to a 12-round draw on June 12th in Queens. Less than a month later, the 2 would fight to another 12-round draw in Connecticut. On August 9th, Kaplan needed 7 rounds to knock out former European bantamweight champion Tommy Noble. He would then pick up a 10-round points victory over former world lightweight title challenger Johnny Goodrich on September 28th. Kaplan would fight to a draw in 2 contests with the clever boxing stablemate of Harry Greb, the Sheik of Calroy, Cuddy DeMarco, on January 7th and April 24th, 1924. Kaplan would continue his winning ways, and it would all pay off as on January 2nd, 1925, Kaplan would step in the ring with Danny Kramer in New York City, with the New York State Athletic Commission World Featherweight title vacated by Hall of Fame featherweight Johnny Dundee on the line. Kramer came into the contest with 100 wins in 136 bouts. This would be Kaplan's coming out party as he put on a clinic. After a head clash cut both fighters in the second round, Kaplan would commence with battering Kramer all over the ring, even closing his eyes shut by the 7th round. It got so bad that even the crowd was calling for the referee to stop the fight. In the ninth, the corner finally gave in and threw in the towel, saving Kramer from further punishment. With the win, Kaplan became the new world featherweight champion. Kaplan would step in with former world junior lightweight champion Steve "Kid" Sullivan on May 22nd. It would be a short night for Kaplan as he dropped Sullivan 4 times and knocked out the game challenger in 5. On August 27th, Kaplan would meet old foe Babe Herman in a 15-round contest with the world featherweight title at stake. This would be the first world title fight in the state of Connecticut since Terry McGovern and Young Corbett II met in 1901. It would turn out to be a hotly contested affair and somewhat controversial as the two men fought to a draw. Many in attendance felt that Herman deserved the nod over Kaplan. They wouldn't have to wait long before they were back in the ring again on December 18th with the featherweight title for grabs, this time in New York. This was their 7th matchup. Kaplan bulldozed Herman throughout the contest. Kaplan maintained the offensive throughout the fight and had Herman staggered and dazed in the 10th. He would close out the show in full control, having won a minimum of 12 of the 15 rounds, cruising to a decision title defense. By March 1st, 1926, Kaplan was in with then 21-year-old Hall of Fame lightweight contender, the Fargo Express, Billy Patrol. The New Britain Herald, a Connecticut paper, referred to Patrol as game but helpless in the fight. Kaplan dominated Patrol en route to a 12-round points victory. Kaplan would travel to Montreal, Canada to knock out former Canadian featherweight champion Leo Kid Roy in 7 rounds on April 21st. This led to a world featherweight title defense against game Mexican Wildcat Bobby Garcia on June 28th. Kaplan, in the prime of his career and on an impressive run, stopped Garcia in 10 rounds. It was at this point that Kaplan decided to vacate the world featherweight title as he could no longer make 126 pounds. This would usher him into a move to lightweight. Before we move on, do us a favor and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Give us a thumbs down as well if it's not your cup of tea. Kaplan's move to 135 wouldn't exactly be smooth sailing, as 3 fights into his new weight, he'd be dropped 4 times before being knocked out in the 5th round against former world super lightweight title challenger Billy Wallace on December 2nd, 1926. Kaplan would bounce back, racking up 11 straight wins, including victories over the likes of former British and Canadian lightweight champion Al Foreman on May 9th, as well as former NBA World Welterweight champion Jackie Fields on June 15th. This led to an October 18, 1927 matchup with the underrated 2-time World Welterweight champion and Hall of Famer, the babyface assassin Jimmy McLaren. The fight would go down at the Coliseum in Chicago, Illinois. The fight was an exciting affair from the start. Kaplan dropped McLaren in the 1st and 2nd rounds to take a commanding lead. McLaren's class would show as he would battle back to drop Kaplan in the 4th and 5th rounds. Kaplan continued to fight fire with fire, and McLaren dropped Kaplan with a hard right in the 8th round. Kaplan struggled but was able to rise at the count of 9. Shortly thereafter, a hard right cross sent Kaplan down and out for the count, handing McLaren the hard-earned victory. After racking up a couple of wins, Kaplan would drop back-to-back losses to the well-traveled Manuel Quinteros on May 31st and July 7th of 1928. On May 11, 1929, Kaplan would take on former world junior welterweight champion Johnny Jacek in Boston. The fight would end in 7 rounds as Jacek was disqualified by the referee for continuous holding, handing Kaplan the victory. On April 2, 1929, Kaplan faced former world junior lightweight and super lightweight world title challenger Joe Glick. Kaplan would gain the 10-round points victory over the 159-fight veteran. This led to a return bout with Billy Wallace on May 10th. Kaplan would avenge the loss by picking up a 10-round points victory. A Kaplan 5-fight win streak would be snapped by tough lightweight contender Emery Cabana on September 17th, with Kaplan dropping a 10-round decision. The two would rematch on November 19th. Kaplan would outpoint Cabana over 10 rounds to even the score. Kaplan would drop a 10-round points decision to the well-traveled former Southern welterweight champion Jack Portney on February 24, 1930. Kaplan would then go on a 6-fight winning streak, capped by a September 24, 1930 matchup with Hall of Fame former world featherweight champion Battling Battalino in East Hartford, Connecticut. As it stands, this is one of the 2 surviving films of Kid Kaplan in action. Kaplan would be all over Battleino from the opening bell, ripping shots on the inside. Kaplan would pick up the 10-round unanimous points victory over the game Battleino. The other surviving footage of Kaplan happened to be his next fight on October 17th when he took on 19-0 Justo Suarez of Argentina in the famed Madison Square Garden. Again, Kaplan pressured Suarez the entire fight, but it would be the cleaner work of Suarez that gained him the edge and points victory over the course of the 10 rounds. Kaplan would avenge his earlier loss to Jack Portney by picking up a 10-round points victory in his next fight on February 4th, 1931. Kaplan didn't let up as he continued on another win streak, defeating former world featherweight and lightweight title contender from Baltimore, Buster Brown, via 10-round decision on March 15th. This led to an August 24th fight with Hall of Fame former world lightweight champion, the Rockford Flash, Sammy Mandel. Despite giving up 6 pounds, Kaplan belted Mandel, winning every round as he gave the former champion all he could handle en route to a 10 rounds points victory. Now in the back end of his career, Kaplan would continue fighting, winning most of his contests before stepping in the ring in his final career fight on February 20th, 1933 in Connecticut. His opponent would be the upstart former colored welterweight and middleweight champion of the world and member of the famed Black Murderers Row, Herbert Lewis Hardwick, better known as Coco Kid. Coco Kid, only 18 at the time, would use his size and speed to outpoint Kaplan in every facet of the fight, winning a decision over the 163-fight veteran. Though not the storybook ending he was looking for, Kaplan knew it was time to hang up the gloves some 10 days later. After his boxing career ended, Lewis stayed in Hartford with his wife and daughter and moonlighted as a boxing referee in Connecticut until the late 1940s. Kaplan died on October 26, 1970. Kaplan left behind an often forgotten but decorated legacy as arguably the greatest Ukrainian fighter of all time, one of the greatest Jewish fighters of all time, one of the greatest featherweight and lightweights of all time, and unquestionably one of the greatest boxers to ever lace up a pair of gloves.